Coming off the off week, you didn't know what exactly to expect. So as LSU makes a change at the head position, gets rid of Brian Kelly, you knew that locker room would be fired up and ready to come into Tuscaloosa and play. And that defensive unit for LSU is as good as we have probably seen all season long. They just can consistently, it seems like week in and week out, we get the best look of every defense that we go against. But this offensive unit was able to put up enough points to give a comfortable win. But it's still the play of the defense, in my opinion, that has really been carrying the weight of this football team as they just play relentless, stripping the ball, putting it on the deck, getting turnovers. We were plus in the turnover margin once again. And when you consistently have that recipe, you're going to find yourselves on top more than not. So a really good victory, forcing 3 field goals, not giving up any points in the end zone. It's just a heck of a performance by that defensive unit. But coming out of the off week, we knew it was a 4-game stretch down that we had to win in order to put ourselves in an opportunity to make the playoffs, and we're one step closer.
One step closer. Again, the Crimson Tide pick up the 20-9 victory over LSU this past Saturday in Tuscaloosa. Alabama had a 17-3 lead at halftime. A nice, once again, right before halftime to get a key touchdown like we saw.
Yeah, we talked about the time management of LSU. With just over a minute to go, Alabama had no timeouts. They elect to throw the football. Goes incomplete. It stops the clock. 56 seconds. We're able to get great field position, and then 3 plays later, Ty Simpson finds Ryan Williams for the touchdown right before half. I mean, heck of a drive. You know, the ball in hand with this offensive unit, regardless of how much time, you always feel you have an opportunity to move the ball down the field and at least give yourself a chance to put yourself in a position to put points on the board.
Certainly saw that for the Crimson Tide. 3 points for Alabama in the second half of that ball game. Crimson Tide with 344 yards of total offense. Once again, a solid performance by Ty Simpson, 277 yards through the air. The rushing attack, 56 yards in this ball game. A lot of people talking about Alabama's running game, as we'll continue to dive into that over the next hour.
Yeah, it's a point of emphasis down in Tuscaloosa right now as this coaching staff continues to try to find ways to be more productive in the running attack, because they understand the importance of it to be balanced. And a lot of times there is some penetration that's going on up front, but other times the running backs just aren't hitting the holes, making their own hole and making a 2 or 3 yard gain. That's a positive. So it's something you have to continue to work on throughout the course of the season. It's not going to fix itself overnight, but hopefully you can gradually just get a little bit better. We got to be able to rush for 100, 150 yards a game if we're going to put ourselves in a place where we want to be, which is competing for championships.
Certainly want to be competing for championships. Crimson Tide pick up another key win in the SEC race to improve to 6-0 in conference play. The winning streak continues as well for this football team that once again finds ways to play with confidence. Again, the outcome never really seemed in doubt this past week.
No, Alabama was definitely in control the entire game. You know, take the opening drive, march it right down the field. Unfortunately, you turn it over on downs as LSU is able to make the stop around the 35, 40-yard line. And then defensively, we get pushed around, but we give up a field goal opportunity that they miss. So no harm on the series there. And then Alabama, the offense kind of took over after that. A couple of nice chunk plays as they're able to get ahead. What was it, tied 3-3 at one point? I think that was as close as LSU ever got.
As close as they would get, and Alabama picks up the win, 20-9 the final score. So coming up over this next hour from Baumhower's in Vestavia Hills, we'll break down Alabama's win against LSU. We'll also look ahead to what's coming up on Saturday, the Crimson Tide and the Oklahoma Sooners. Again, more on that coming up. You're listening to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank, available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. Again, the Crimson Tide pick up the win, 20-9, the final score against the LSU Tigers this past Saturday. What'd you see from Crimson Tide quarterback Ty Simpson in this ballgame?
You know what? It wasn't one of his better performances, but it wasn't horrible either. I mean, it was just a good, solid performance. He hit a couple of passes across the middle, as he consistently does and has throughout the course of this season. He's pretty doggone good, though, when he gets clean pocket. And that's something we talked about in the broadcast. Early on, a couple of third and long situations, LSU brought some real unique looks where they were kind of all over the place defensively, off the ball, brought safeties down. You didn't really know where the pressure was going, and as you're trying to slide the line one way or another, it's kind of a guessing game, and that's why it's so important to get up the line, get the look, adjust to the protection, and try to get it going. But we didn't always pick it up early on, and there were still some open receivers, but we were forced to punt as a result of it. But I thought as the game progressed, the offensive line settled in. They did a much better job of picking up some of those exotic looks and allowing a clean pocket for Ty Simpson to be able to navigate in. The only issue that he ran into was when Harold Perkins applied the pressure and got the strip sack. That's one where Ty has to be strong with the football. He has got to, when he feels pressure, he has got to secure that ball with two hands and make sure that he does not turn that over, because that's 2 consecutive games where pressure has come and he has lost the ball inside the pocket. You can't do that because you're right around the 50-yard line or close to there. You're within 20 yards or so of scoring position. She can't afford that. But Lottie Brooks, he hit him on a deep over. That was a beautiful throw that Lottie was able to turn the burners on and really go after and get. But still missing a couple of other opportunities downfield. Had Jeremy Bernard wide open, that would have been a touchdown. Overthrew him. Had Lottie Brooks again where he underthrew him. So you really just want to throw a catchable ball, I think, is the biggest thing. And sometimes knowing the situation and working across the middle of the field, sometimes you don't have to lead a receiver. It's just sticking it right between the numbers, making sure the big tight end like Edwards, he had one that got knocked away across the middle. You stick it on the big tight end. He takes that hit from a safety if he's not running into the ball, and he secures it, and it's probably a first down. So it's little things like that. And every game, regardless of what level you play at and how good you are, you're going to have a couple of those throws that you wish you had back, that you missed just a little bit. But he continues to throw the ball in the right place, survey the field, understand what the defense does. And as long as he continues to do that, we're going to put ourselves in position to win.
How frustrating can that be as a quarterback when, again, you feel like you're just a little bit off one reason or another, like you mentioned, a couple overthrows, a couple underthrows in a game like that?
Well, you just have to keep pressing, and that's what he did so good versus South Carolina when nothing was going right. For 3 solid quarters, he was able to put a couple of drives together and really hit those guys in rhythm. And it ended up being the difference in us winning and potentially walking out of there with a loss. So, look, he's a fighter. He's a battler. He gets frustrated with himself, but he also understands you learn from it. That was a previous play. You got to move on to the next one because there's going to be another opportunity in this system, in this offense, to make some more explosive plays.
I don't know, LSU certainly has not had the year they want to have, but is this still one of the better defenses Alabama's played all season long?
They are definitely up there. We're going to see another good one this weekend. I thought Missouri had a really good defense, as well as did South Carolina, caused some problems with some of their personnel matchups, and that will continue once again versus Oklahoma. And I think the good thing about it is when you're every single week seeing good talent line up across from you, you get into that rhythm as an offensive line and as running backs in protection of understanding you're not surprised by the speed or the power that your opponent is coming up against you with. This is what we're accustomed to. This is the speed and how we play. We see it every week, and you adjust to it. And I think as a result of that, we've gotten better in protection.
More key games coming up for the Crimson Tide. We'll still look back at this win against LSU. Again, 20-9, the final score this past Saturday at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. We'll continue with more Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Gets the snap, looking, stepping up in the pocket, firing deep downfield. Got a man, Lotzier Brooks makes the catch, tripped up at the 12, then he fumbles where they're going to mark him down at the 12, maybe the 13-yard line.
Bama fans, J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear. New Alabama hats, T-shirts, and polos are arriving daily. Visit online at jnjapparel.net. You can also shop their retail store at 1926 University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. RTR with J&J. So good to see Lotzier Brooks healthy and back for the Crimson Tide.
Man, I tell you what, you can look at the Grand Canyon or a Monet or whatever, but to me, true beauty is seeing great protection up front and a deep pass developing, and you're seeing the receiver come open and just that ball laid out there, and he goes diving for it. It was an incredible play. It put us down at the 12-yard line. We turned it into a touchdown, I think, a play later. So, I mean, that was a beautiful play from the call to the protection to the throw to the catch all the way around, and that's something that we need to see more of because I'm telling you, those plays are there, and they're going to continue to be there against some of these aggressive defenses that we're going to face over the next month.
And it's great to see him again continue to emerge as a freshman. We got a taste of that with Ryan Williams a year ago, but he's doing some special things for this football team.
And he is really added, and I think we missed him a lot at South Carolina, just his presence out there, because he's that third receiver who really does a nice job across the middle on some of the deep overs and the out routes, and that third or fourth receiver that defenses just don't have an answer for. Once you account for Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton and Ryan Williams, it's like, all right, who's got 17? I guess we'll put a strong safety on him. Well, you can't do that. He's too talented. He goes up high for balls. He doesn't mind sacrificing his body to catch it. And he does a really nice job with his hands of making sure he secures it. Think about the Missouri game, how he was called on that 4th and 8 on the out route. And ball was thrown where it needed to be, but he secured it, got his feet in bounds, and really sealed the victory for Alabama.
And then defense is also saying, okay, who's going to cover number 80? Josh Cuevas, 4 catches, 58 yards in this ball game, continues to be a go-to guy for Ty Simpson.
He is, and we even saw him at the fullback position a little bit versus LSU, and that gives you the ability to go either way with him in the flat or even on a vertical. They move him around a lot. There was one particular play, maybe third or fourth quarter, I think it was fourth quarter, where he was inside, went outside, tipped off the coverage that it was going to be man coverage because a linebacker went with him, and he goes on a vertical route, and he catches it over his shoulder, and it was a huge play for about 15, 20 yards. So he is a guy that you continue to use that big body. When you get the favorable matchups, you know that Ty Simpson is licking his chops going, I know who I'm going to.
And, of course, you make fun of me for getting excited anytime Caden Proctor's lined up
Yes.
somewhere funny. How much do you get excited when you see the I formation?
I love it. I miss it. Now, there's still no ISO right up the middle like we used to do back in the day, but it's refreshing to see the formation, because although you're not running power football, how it traditionally was in the 70s and 80s, you can still do a lot with that look by having a talented tight end at that position. You can motion him out. You can lead block him on the edge, do some different things. He can fill in where pullers are coming around. There's a lot of variations that you can use, and it's not something the defenses see a ton of.
And defenses have been saying that a lot because, again, we are seeing things every single week from Ryan Grubb that we've never really seen before from this Alabama offense.
He just continues to go into his bag of tricks or whatever, and you can call them gadget plays if you want to. They're really not, though. I mean, we saw a screen late in the game where it was kind of a throwback screen. I can't remember who caught the ball, but he had a nice wall of linemen downfield out in front of him, and you just wonder, is it ever going to end? And I don't think that it is, because I think this guy enjoys drawing up plays of different things, different creative ways of getting the ball to his playmakers in space that gives them an opportunity to make a big play.
We'll see what you have coming up this week against Oklahoma, Eastern Illinois after that, and then a trip to Lee County after Thanksgiving coming up for the Crimson Tide. But we'll continue talking about what's ahead for Alabama, plus more on this win against LSU when we return. By the way, if you're coming to Tuscaloosa coming up for the Oklahoma game on Saturday, make sure you join us 4 hours before kickoff at Vector Security Champions Lane. It is the best pregame fan fest in the nation. We will have a free pregame concert featuring country music legend Joe Nichols, along with the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa, meet and greets with UA student athletes, food trucks, and of course ice cold beer in Legends Lounge, where there's never a cover charge. Visit championslane.com each week for more details. More Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Bama on top, 20-9. Looking to throw. Van Buren had it poked away. Ball's on the deck, and Alabama's got it. Yonsei Pierre knocked it away, and coming out with it for the Crimson Tide is London Simmons.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on the show, submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, Alabama's largest news site, daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. And right now on AL.com, probably a lot of stories on this Alabama defense, starting with the play we just heard, Yonsei Pierre getting more and more pressure on the quarterback, getting a takeaway.
And he was the star of the game to watch going into the contest, because we felt that he could take advantage of his matchups versus these offensive tackles for LSU, and he did exactly that. He had a couple of sacks on the day right before halftime, or excuse me, the first quarter. He sacked Garrett Nussmeier, and then obviously the one that you just mentioned. And I went back and watched that. I'm not quite sure that he touched the ball, but he still got credit for it, and he should. He applied the pressure, forced the ball on the ground, that we were able to scoop it up to seal the game there at the tail end. But he continues as well as these other linebackers, continues to do just an incredible job in those passing opportunities of just creating all kinds of havoc. And man, when you can create pressure with just a 4-man rush, it creates all kinds of problems in the throwing game for your opponent, because we drop back in zone coverages, the windows are tight, we're getting pressure, so the clock is still ticking, and as a result, we are so good in the turnover margin.
Really are, and again, we may hear the highlight coming up, but even if we don't, Nakai Hill-Green punching at that football. I mean,
Yes.
You could clearly see it on video on another forced fumble.
Yeah, it was textbook how they do it in the NFL. When you're going to tackle the dude, he rears back like Rocky Balboa and punches that ball loose, and then is able to recover it himself. I mean, 3 times they had the ball on the ground, 3 or maybe 4. So this defense is now so confident and gotten so good at tackling that they are now looking for strip opportunities every time they get around a ball carrier.
Are you happy with the way Alabama performed, given that LSU changed things? Went from Garrett Nussmeier, who started the ball game, to Michael Van Buren, who does bring a different skill sets to the field.
Yeah, we gave up a couple of 3rd and long passing opportunities where they were able to convert and move the chains, but honestly, it was just really good throws and good job of the receivers coming back to the ball, because if those receivers hadn't come back, they just stayed stationary on that little 12-yard, 15-yard curl or whatever, the ball is probably intercepted because there's going to be a defender step in front of it. But they did a good job of driving back towards the throw and shortening up the length of that thing. So, yeah, I liked how we played versus Van Buren. He's mobile. He's tough to stop. He was able to get on the edge, but he really didn't hurt us, I think, the way that Coach Wilson and this LSU staff thought that he potentially might there in the second half.
Yeah, the longest run he had was 9 yards in this ball game, outside of one really huge run for LSU's Harlem Berry. Shut down the LSU rushing attack, which, again, it's not a strength of their team, kind of like it hasn't been a strength of Alabama in the last few weeks, but still not allowing much on the ground.
They did have 1 or 2 big runs, big explosive runs, but other than that, we kept them in check all night long. And I still think Tim Keenan doesn't get enough credit. James Smith, they're doing the dirty work up front of really closing up those holes and taking on the blockers and preventing them from going up to the linebackers. Justin Jefferson flying around, boy, seeing him healthy compared to last year when he was really struggling with injuries is just night and day, and he continues to make plays. And you don't call his name a ton. However, you look at the stat sheet after every single game, and he consistently rolls up 8 to 10 tackles.
He certainly does, and even some of the young guys. London Simmons recovered that fumble. Isaiah Faga had a tackle in this ball game as well. That rotation seems to still be pretty strong.
And that is crucial, especially down the stretch when everyone is depleted with bodies, of being able to rotate in a solid 7 or 8 defensive linemen that you can keep fresh. Not only for that game, you want to be playing strong in the 4th quarter, but also at the end of November, 1st of December, to have as many healthy bodies as possible, because you're limiting their snap exposure.
We're hoping we still have a lot of football coming up this season for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and for each and every game, make Baumhower's Victory Grille your big game headquarters. Baumhower's has been voted the best wings in Alabama and the #1 sports-themed restaurant in the state. Offering fan favorites, Baumhower's is great for catering, carry-out, and also dining in all season long. Legendary food, legendary fun. Baumhower's Victory Grille. That's where we are tonight here in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. We'll talk more about the Crimson Tide when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Nussmeier, who gets the snap, sets up the screen across the middle of the tight end. He's got a first down and more. Ball's knocked loose. Fumble recovered by Bama. And that is fantastic, because the guy that forced it is the guy that got it. Nakai Hill-Green. A huge hit on the tight end Sharp, who had the first down, but he didn't have the pigskin, and Bama's got it inside the 25 of LSU.
Just talking about that play, Nakai Hill-Green, part of the win for the Crimson Tide against LSU. Again, 20-9, the final score from Tuscaloosa on Saturday. If you'd like to be part of tonight's Crimson Tide Rewind show, make sure you submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com. It's Alabama's largest news site with daily coverage of the Crimson Tide. So Alabama gets this win against LSU, and you kind of got the sense from the players when they talked to the media post-game, even Kalen DeBoer as well. Really proud of the effort, proud of getting a win in a game like this against LSU. Always a tough opponent, but also knowing that things to clean up and it's time to move this thing forward.
Well, there's always areas that can be improved upon, plays that you leave out on the field, and that was really Coach DeBoer's message at halftime, was just too many missed opportunities in the first half, and it kind of continued over in the second half as you're only able to score 3. But as we mentioned, defensively, you held LSU out of the end zone all night long. An LSU offense that had been scoring touchdowns, not near as potent as what we were probably expecting coming into the season, but still had been able to move the football. And you were the more physical football team, I think, across the board. And, you know, I continue to love to watch how this defense adjusts throughout the course of the game. We're getting hit and hurt on some quick screen passes early on. Tight end screen was killing us. You make a couple of adjustments, and then next thing you know, Bray Hubbard is a headhunter waiting on a crosser from Aaron Anderson and decleats him, and the place goes nuts as a result of it. So it's just fascinating to watch in-game adjustments that both sides are able to make to improve on their play. And we're still just waiting on a full 4-quarter game to see exactly how good this football team can be.
Once again, saw how great this crowd can be. Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium, another night game, and it was electric all throughout. It was fun.
The energy was definitely there. I don't know if there was much build-up for this game as maybe the Tennessee game, with everything that had transpired over the last 2 weeks down in Baton Rouge. Obviously, they come in here with only a loss or so, with a lot of hope still playing for. It's a completely different atmosphere. But listen, it got loud when it needed to get loud, when the defense needed some noise, and as a result, what did you see? 3 or 4, 5 false starts as a result of that definitely aided. I mean, you think back to the slot I think that Van Buren had, where we all thought he had a first down. Next thing you know, it gets replayed. He's half a yard shy. They line up to go for it on 4th down. It's really their last gasp, and they get a false start and have to punt it. I think that was their second possession, maybe, or second possession of the second half. And that's all the crowd. That's the fans creating that hostile environment that makes it tough for your opponent to come in and communicate and play well, and as a result, they go backwards.
So we've talked about offense. We have talked about defense. How about special teams for a moment? Looking at Connor Talty, 2 of 3 on field goals in this game, and then some great punts by Blake Dowd. 3 punts in this ball game, all went inside the 20.
Yeah, man, as long as he's punting around midfield, he's as good as there is about pinning folks deep. Doesn't necessarily have the strongest leg. He's not going to flip the field for you, but he's going to put it down there 30, 35 yards consistently, and he has a nice little backup spin that he sticks on that sucker. And Jalen Mbakwe hustling down, able to keep one of those punts from going in the end zone. It gets down at the 2-yard line, and that's you're setting up shot with this defense being aggressive and LSU's inability to run the football. They could not give themselves much cushion, and we had great field position as a result of it.
Got to win the field position battle, and the Crimson Tide able to do that so much against LSU this past week. So that's what happened between Alabama and LSU. We'll go around the SEC when we return in just a moment as we continue to look back on Alabama's win against LSU. Look ahead to the Tide and the Sooners coming up on Saturday. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Now Daniel steps right beside him. They'll hand it off to him. And Daniel up the middle, carrying a tackler to the goal line. Is he in? No signal yet. Touchdown, Alabama.
Touchdown, Alabama. Touchdown, Daniel Hill. Tyler Watson, has been fun to watch him emerge over the last few weeks.
Yeah, he has definitely progressed. And in my opinion, you're really your premier back, your best running back as far as what he's able to do. He does such a good job in pass protection. He has nice soft hands. You can get him out into space, and he's going to make catches. But he is now turning on his just toughness between the tackles, carrying defenders along for a ride, picking up tough yardage, and he needs to continue down that track of improving, because that could be the difference in getting this running game going. But I love to see that big frame leaning forward, driving those legs, pushing the pile forward, and that was a big touchdown for Daniel Hill.
It's been fun to watch with Daniel Hill as Alabama wins 20-9 over LSU. Let's take a look around the Southeastern Conference. The only team ranked in front of Alabama, the third-ranked Texas A&M Aggies. They are now a perfect 9-0 on the season. Had an impressive win, 38-17 at Missouri.
And this was a game that was really never in doubt. We had an opportunity to catch a few plays prior to our game versus LSU, and it was never in doubt. Of course, Missouri was playing the third-string quarterback. They couldn't really get anything going offensively, but A&M's a good football team.
Certainly are. Georgia picks up a 20-point win at Mississippi State, and kind of similar to last year. Georgia loses early in the year to Alabama, gaining steam as the year goes along.
Yeah, they are. They're getting better and better, and this was not as close as a 20-point contest. This was a football game that was dominated from the opening kickoff by Georgia. Mississippi State got a couple of late touchdowns to bring that within 20.
And then we were kind of keeping an eye on this in the booth all throughout our pregame coverage, and then even as the game started just a little bit.
Ole Miss and Citadel?
Yeah, absolutely. 49-0. Ole Miss gets the win. Did you like that 21-0 start in the first quarter for the Rebels?
For the Rebels, no. And how about Lane Kiffin going and taking a picture with some dude proposing? I mean, that's when you know you're playing a powder puff.
Well, the real game I was talking about, Auburn against Vanderbilt. Obviously, a lot has changed for the Auburn Tigers. DJ Durkin, the interim head coach, and Auburn found some offense.
Yeah,
38 points against Vandy.
You know, they go into halftime up 20-10, and you're thinking, oh, Vanderbilt's kind of put themselves in a tough spot. But in the second half, Diego Pavia and that offense really turned it up. The defense did enough for Vanderbilt, obviously, to get the win. But Auburn has really turned a corner offensively, went with a little bit different philosophy. The quarterback looked a lot better than he did the previous week versus Kentucky. So, they felt like, that's what we were talking about, though, the different voice in the locker room from your coach by having someone, your head coach, get fired. Sometimes that can galvanize a football team and make them a little bit tougher. Now, you just wonder, will it last? And you hope that it doesn't, obviously. But I think it also shows that Vanderbilt is a really good football team. And the difference in this one was Diego Pavia didn't turn the ball over as he did versus Texas and as he did versus us in Tuscaloosa. And that ended up being the difference and the only way that they were to take that game into overtime and win.
Yeah, I was going to mention Vanderbilt. With that win, Vanderbilt's now 8-2 on the year, 4-2 in the SEC, and they have an open date coming up. So all they have left, home against Kentucky, at Tennessee, and then potential to be 10-2, kind of sneak in the playoffs just like Tennessee did a year ago.
That's crazy to think. And depending on what us in Texas do, you think about it, man. I mean, they could be sitting right there with 2 losses and being compared. Their only 2 losses are against 2 potentially other teams that are headed to the playoffs. So they are sitting in a good spot if they can maintain what they have done. And that's not necessarily near as easy as we thought it was just a couple of weeks ago, because here comes Kentucky looking pretty good.
Yeah, the final score to look at, Kentucky wins 38-7 over the Florida Gators this past week, as Florida obviously having a tough season, and Kentucky now suddenly has the upper hand in this rivalry in this past decade.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Florida's, those players are done. They just go ahead and shut it down.
Well, for the Crimson Tide, a huge game coming up against the Oklahoma Sooners. More on that when we return. You'll listen to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Single setback will be Daniel Hill behind Ty Simpson. Play action. Ty looking across the middle. He's got a man. Catch is made. That's Jeremy at the 45. Dragging a Tiger all the way across midfield to the LSU 46. Move the chains. A bank first down after a 33-yard pickup.
Jeremy Bernard continues to be that go-to player.
Oh, my. That's the only thing we missed from Chris on that one. He does such a good job. Sure-handed. I think we've only seen 1 or 2 drops all season long out of number 5, and he's just kind of the Swiss Army knife is what we like to call him, because opening play of the game, he lines up in the backfield in a running back position, rotates out, and he just gives you a ton of different looks. And the ball in his hands after the catch, always making guys miss, picking up an extra 5 or 6 yards. Just a huge asset for this team.
It really is. So Alabama will take on Oklahoma this week. More on that in a second. Did quickly want to get your thoughts on another game in the SEC coming up this Saturday. Mentioned Georgia picking up steam. Texas starting to look a little bit better as well. That's coming up at 6:30 from Athens. The Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs.
Offensively, they look so much better, obviously, than they did in the opener versus Ohio State. And you're going to be looking back at the end of the year going, how did they lose to Florida? That's where you're going to be scratching your head, because they have gotten better and better every single week. But this will by far be their toughest opponent over the last several weeks. I mean, they dominated Oklahoma, which was a little bit of a shock. But Steve Sarkisian, you knew if he could just continue to develop his quarterback, get a little bit better protection, he has a really good defense, they're going to be competitive going into Athens.
That'll be entertaining to watch after our game, of course, coming up at 2:30. Our radio coverage will start at 11:30 on Saturday across the network outside of the Bud Light backyard. Inside Vector Security Champions Lane, it's the Crimson Tide against the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma 7-2 on the year, 3-2 in the SEC, and just on paper and on tape look a lot improved from the team that beat Alabama last year.
They do. Offensively, with the addition of Mateer, I mean, it's just a much more efficient offense. you wonder how dominant they've kind of had their struggles running the football as well, though, as their quarterback is really their leading rusher. At least it seems that way. But he is healing up from that hand injury that he had. It got a couple of nice weapons at wide receiver that can hurt you in the intermediate stuff. They don't really have anybody that's going to take the top off, so you don't have to worry about that. But Alabama does such a good job against the deep ball anyway that wasn't necessarily a concern. I think the biggest issue, though, is how the Alabama offense stacks up versus this Oklahoma defense. Last year, that's where the issue was. As a pick six and 1 or 2 scoring drives that Oklahoma had against our defense, we just didn't get enough offensive production last year. That was the biggest issue. We just went in the hole and didn't do anything all night long. That's something that's going to have to improve upon. I know that that's been a point of emphasis, changing up the signals, being the aggressor, making sure you're getting rid of the football quickly. But more importantly, when you have open people, hitting them, making it first downs, moving the chain, stacking plays on top of plays, something Coach DeBoer loves to talk about. We hadn't seen it the last couple of weeks. It's going to be key, though, versus Oklahoma. And once again, the environment, the fans, and the energy that they bring of keeping that pressure on Oklahoma, because they don't want to be playing from behind either. I mean, they would love to win this football game scoring 20, 21 points. We got to make sure that we get to 30 from here on out.
Certainly do, and something that would help that would be the running game. Is this the game that the running back comes back against?
Probably
it's obviously
not.
Tough because of how good Oklahoma is on D-line.
But you don't know. You also don't know. Are we going to find something? Are we going to be able to stretch them out horizontally and really get those linebackers and defensive front loosened up and then attack them? I know Tennessee had some running opportunities that they were successful in. They really moved the ball up and down the field, just couldn't score enough points because of turnovers. So there are opportunities there. It's just you have to be aggressive, you have to be intentional, and just keep the foot on the pedal and not lose that intensity.
And for this Crimson Tide defense, really good at takeaways, whether it's forcing fumbles and then a fair share of interceptions as well. And John Mateer, 8 touchdowns, but 6 interceptions this season.
And hopefully we can confuse him a little bit, take advantage of a beat-up offensive line that Oklahoma consistently every year seems to have. Of course, they were able to piece it together, but can we keep the pressure on them? You can disrupt him, but you got to maintain him because he loves to pull it down, and he will kill you with his legs.
And that would be tough to see for Alabama going up against Oklahoma, trying to slow down this Oklahoma team that, like we mentioned, 7-2 on the season. A couple of losses for them against Texas as well as Ole Miss, but kind of like the Vanderbilt discussion a little bit ago, if Oklahoma wins this ball game, they're right in the mix of the playoffs as well.
Just like Vanderbilt. I mean, they're just right there knocking on the outside looking in. You're just wondering where their big wins. Of course, they win versus us. That's a big win for Oklahoma. We got to make sure that doesn't happen, though. And I'm telling you, coming out of the gates quick, scoring touchdowns, not settling for field goals is going to be key.
It'll be Alabama against Oklahoma coming up on Saturday. Some final keys to this game when we return as we look ahead to what's coming up in Tuscaloosa this week. A busy time on campus at the Capstone. I want to remind everyone as well, men's basketball coming up against the number 2 Purdue Boilermakers. They were number 1, now they're number 2, but also Alabama, they were number 15. Now the Crimson Tide number 8 after the huge win at Madison Square Garden over 5th-ranked St. John's this past week. So fans, it is a hard sellout, but some tickets are available at secondary market. Check those out. Make sure you get to Coleman Coliseum. Be loud as can be. Thursday night, 6 o'clock, Alabama against Purdue. Our radio airtime will be 5 o'clock all across the network. We'll be back with our final segment of Crimson Tide Rewind next. This is Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. Crimson Tide and the Sooners coming up on Saturday. Saban Field, Bryant-Denny Stadium. 2:30 will be the kickoff. Again, make sure you join us outside Vector Security Champions Lane. 11:30 a.m. we'll have our pregame radio coverage, starting with Chris Stewart, Tyler Watts, Corey Reamer, and myself. And then don't forget on stage Joe Nichols after that with a free pregame concert. Tyler, going to be breaking down Alabama against Oklahoma. You mentioned some of the important things for the Crimson Tide, but just overall, how does Alabama get a win, keep moving this thing forward coming up this
The biggest thing is play within themselves and not try to be something they're not. And that's not been an issue all season long with this football team. Win the turnover battle, force a turnover or two, take advantage of that, and just stay aggressive. This football team's playing with a lot of confidence. And we nitpick about how they can't do this. They don't do that. They missed here. It's still a really sound football team. They don't beat themselves, and that's where you have to start. That trend needs to continue. Put the pressure on Oklahoma. Find a way to get this victory, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. This is the most important game of the season. You owe Oklahoma something because you laid an egg last time you went to Norman last November, and that is the game that kept you out of the playoffs. You owe something to these guys. Let's put it on them.
Absolutely. And do you think Coach DeBoer is bringing it up a lot coming up this week? Because, again, rosters do change more in college football from one year to the next than we've ever seen before.
They do, but it's, I'm sure that it's mentioned, hey, this is a game that we didn't perform well. It's the player's job, though, to get hype. But you don't really care about that on Monday and Tuesday. You talk about it, you build it up. But when you open up those locker room doors, it will have been mentioned, I guarantee you, as those players leave the tunnel.
Certainly exciting. Can't wait to see what's coming up for Alabama against Oklahoma on Saturday. And then after that, Eastern Illinois. And then before you know it, after Thanksgiving, we'll head down to Auburn to close out the regular season. Some really important football coming up. But have you liked the way this team has kind of, ever since week one, really approached the next week with the same kind of intensity we want to see from Alabama?
They're kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder, and they've been in must-win mentality all season long, and that needs to maintain, because quite honestly, it is true. You have 3 tough games, well, you have 2 tough games coming up, Oklahoma, Auburn, with someone in between. You got to win them all. You cannot drop one of these 3s. I think that's the mentality that you have, is you have to find yourself playing in Atlanta.
That would be great. Alabama, again, on the doorstep of doing so. 2 SEC games left, and then Eastern Illinois mixed in as well. But, Tyler, it should be fun. It's going to be meaningful coming up on Saturday. Alabama against Oklahoma. Look forward to seeing you there in Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide.
I look forward to it. Roll Tide.
Obviously, great work by our color analyst, Tyler Watts, on this show. And, of course, if you missed any portion of this show, you can always catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. Download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. So we're starting our week of programming here on the network tonight, of course, with Crimson Tide Rewind. I do want to salute all the veterans coming up for Veterans Day coming up tomorrow. A thank you to all veterans who have served, and especially any here with us at Baumhower's Victory Grille tonight. We thank you all for your service, and again, very happy Veterans Day coming up. A huge week ahead for all of us, but again, thank you again, and God bless everyone on Veterans Day coming up tomorrow. But we have a special thanks to our, of course, Tyler Watts. How about Todd Robbins, our engineer and producer here? Zach Factor back at our Learfield studios. This has been Roger Hoover with you, and I want to say a huge thank you for listening. Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Again, if you missed any portion of the show, available on the Alabama Insider podcast. You can also catch the video replay, available as well on the CTSN YouTube page each and every week. But that's going to do it for tonight's show. As we looked back at Alabama's win against the LSU Tigers, now we're looking ahead to Alabama against the Oklahoma Sooners coming up on Saturday. Our radio start time 11:30 across the network. Until then, thanks for listening, and roll Tide.